Without Context.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of the Without Context podcast. We don't have a VTuber this week, so there's that. Rabbit, why don't you just introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Aidan. I'm also known as Rabbit Run Dev. I am a junior technical designer at Gunfire Games. We made Darksiders, which a lot of you probably know, as well as Remnant from the Ashes, and a couple of the launch titles for the Oculus. Fun fact, John Carmack has actually been inside the building where I work.
Nice.
This guy who programmed Doom.
The galaxy, like, ever-evolving brain that brought us the FPS genre.
The Gestalt Intelligence John Carmack. Are you also a Civvy watcher?
I watch Civvy.
Hey,
but I'm also playing Remnant every now and then, and I'm enjoying it.
Glad to hear it, dude. Oh, it's so much fun, honestly.
It's a Dark Souls game, so I kind of am bad at it, but
I mean, it's very hard to be good at games that are like that difficult.
Yeah.
It's nice because it really rewards you for like wanting to push the envelope with like builds and things like that, and that's something I really like in an ARPG.
Yeah,
I like being able to just be like, oh, here's like infinitely more difficulty. Let me just see what hammers I can hit it with to do the most stuff, and like, well, I'm gonna die in one hit, so I might as well just go straight damage or whatever.
Yeah,
but,
it's
cool.
It's cool hearing that you had John Carmack in the building. I mean, he's definitely, I guess, if you think of like game designer or like a software
Rushmore of game
developer,
design,
it's like he's on there. It's like he's the magical duo that made Doom. Is like you have the tech guy, and then you have like the creative guy, and it's like both their faces, the two Johns.
Like, you need that left brain, right brain in order to like get anything done. Honestly, like it's so interesting for me, like moving up from mostly solo indie development to like a professional, design space where there's like programming support and there's designers that know stuff that I don't know, and it's not just all me doing one thing. Because it's like, it streamlines the process so much, and you're able to do so many more cool things. But because of that, like the scope can get really blown out. So having people who are like, responsible and technical minded, as well as these kind of free thinking, like, oh, I would have never thought of this crazy thing, kind of like design space. It's nice to have that, like those like checks and balances. I feel like you make a cooler thing out of it.
Yeah,
I think we start there actually, because that's kind of what we were going to start talking about.
Yeah, I want to say before we get too ahead of ourselves, we brought Rabbit on to the show today to kind of talk, the game development scene and industry. The way we have somebody who obviously works in it, and it's a very cool industry. That kind of thing. A lot of people will say like, "Hey, I want to make a video game," or "I want to do something," and this is a person who is doing that, so it's great. And you invited Rabbit onto the show, but I've met Rabbit by Twitter. When I first started coming back to making content, I was doing something with Haunted PS1, which is a collection of indie games that are kind of thrown together as like an old school demo disc, which is a very cool concept. And I definitely recommend it. You guys have 3 of them out right now. I think there was one for this year, last year, and the year before. At least that's what I saw.
So Haunted PS1 is actually like more than just the discs. We're actually an entire community of retro horror designers. A lot of folks are like one of our tech artists who we have just kind of in the community, I believe works at Unity and wrote an entire render pipeline just to make Unity look like PlayStation graphics.
Awesome.
So the whole idea is getting all of these like really creative people in one place and kind of enabling each other to be able to do these like really amazing projects that are just kind of crowdsourced in terms of like the way that they're made. It was one of the like the places that really helped me form my identity as a designer. So yeah, we have the 3 demo discs now. There was the original, the second one, which I actually made a game for on my own, and Spectral Mall, which came out a couple of days ago, actually, and you should definitely go play it.
There'll be a link in the description, because
all bangers.
I need to get
all
around
bangers.
that, because what game did you make on last year's?
So I made a game called The Drowning Machine, which I'm still working on, and it is very, very hard to work. It's a game I actually started working on with a friend of mine before he passed away, and I just wanted to like get it out there and finish it and get his, you know, artistic vision and message out there, but it's kind of over time become more about him and like the process of grieving. It's really, really messed up, and I would not recommend playing it if you're in a bad mental space. But
well, I'm thinking about it because I think I played the one from last year, and that one might have missed that one because it's not ringing bells. I don't mean that as like a slight to you, but I'm like,
no, absolutely. It's like one of those projects that a lot of people saw the like 7-mile long content warning and were like, oh, but that's probably a good decision, all things considered. It's like very heavy.
You know, I've also done vent pieces such as like it's a vent piece, right?
No, it's absolute no, it's 100% event piece. It's like it's barely a video game. It's more of just a series of upsetting interactions and environments you can kind of walk through.
I've definitely written a module that I'm never going to like play or release. It's for me. It's bad, and it's a vent piece, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm never going to release it. You'll never see the light of day.
Yeah, something that struck me as a vent piece in that Haunted PS1, I forget the name of it, but it was like the final days of like an online game.
Oh yeah, Agony of a Dying MMO.
Yeah, and I think that's where, because I was trying to make like a scripted video, like reviewing all of the games on the disc, and I got to that one. I'm like, I don't even know what I can talk about when it comes to this one, because like, I know what this feels like. I've been there when games that I've grown up playing have their servers cut off, or the people that you meet online just stop showing up online, and I'm sitting there, I'm like, I don't really know like how to feel about this game, because it's also coming off as like very melodramatic at times.
It's definitely it's interesting knowing what I do about Salem, the designer. I've also had those experiences, and it's been interesting for me as a Jewish person, like interacting with a lot of like online like quote gamer spaces. But there's so much like I think that a lot of people in the Haunted PS1 community in particular express like very, very specific feelings and experiences, and a lot of the time it's so interesting to me the way that indie horror in particular is fundamentally unrelatable. It bends, you know, actual experiences into these like twisted like facsimiles of themselves that are more metaphorical than literal, but like carry more weight because, you know, you know how you're more scared of monsters in movies that you haven't seen yet because your brain's able to fill in the details.
Yeah.
The idea is to give that kind of like resonance to it by not being particularly like it's really interesting as an aesthetic choice, because there are intentional absurdities that are like worked into a lot of these games. Like I'm trying to remember. It's called Start Survey. There was a game that was passed around a lot. That was made by, I think, a guy named Nat from the server. Like Markiplier played it, and a bunch of these other people played it. But the idea is that it kind of slowly, you start to realize that it knows more about you than you think it does. And
I know which one that is. That's the survey on the computer. And you can look around the room you're in.
Exactly.
And it's just like this feeling of dread that comes from it. You're like, I don't know what this game like has as like the thing that is making me dread, but it's there, you know?
Exactly. And I think that that's one of the things that is a huge advantage of this kind of like retro PS1 horror style is, you know, you think about I don't know, The Witness, for example, which is a sort of recent game, and it's like it's clearly an homage to Silent Hill, but I don't know that it had the same effect because it was detailed. You know, you have these like high poly models, and you have you know, a much more distinct picture of what the monster looks like. Whereas Silent Hill 1, for example, a lot of those monsters are just horrifying jumbles of pixels and flesh.
Yeah, you can't tell what they are.
Exactly. So your brain has to do so much of the work, and it's automatically going to fill in things that are way scarier to you personally.
Yeah.
And I think that sentiment is one of the things that's really carried Haunted PS1 as a movement, is the idea of intentional vagueness in order to force your brain to make connections to it in a way that it wouldn't if it was like closer to the way that modern graphics look.
Yeah,
So.
and those games also not only have this like way that you can't relate to them because of like the horror itself, but then there are games that are very relatable for people. I forget the name of it, but it's like the RPG Maker style game of
An Outcry.
An Outcry, yeah, where it's it's very obvious that this is a trans main character, and it's like this right-wing organization is like the focus of it, and it's like a very real thing that people can feel horror about and feels relatable about in certain ways. And I think I love that the most about the indie game community is that they're able to tell these stories that, you know, a board of directors would be like, maybe this is a little too
too political.
There's no focus.
There's no the mainstream won't like this, you know?
Oh yeah, and I think that that's one of the really important things about like how widespread developer tools are and how easy they are to access. Like I'm personally an Unreal guy. I've always been an Unreal guy. I've been playing Unreal tournaments since I was like 6.
Hey, let's go.
But like, you know, the fact that you don't have to pay for Unreal, like anything you release in Unreal Engine and you get the premium right off the bat until you make like $100,000 a quarter. I think they actually just upped it to $1 million. Is such a game changer because, you know, you have this like asset store that's like completely accessible and has a ton of free stuff. You have all these tutorials online, and so there's all these stories that are being told in this like interactive fiction format that just like couldn't exist before this. You know, you see stuff like Yume Nikki and like Eve and stuff like that that's like very, very abstract because, you know, you're limited by the RPG Maker format. But now that 3D games are becoming something that's like way more accessible, you're starting to see stuff like there's a game made by a friend of mine named Color Fiction called AE, where you just wander around this really like upsetting environment, and it's just it's this like hopeless like vague beautiful environment that is exclusively meant to be like a place that you just go and think about things. It's like a place that you can kind of just wander around for inspiration. That's not a thing that could have existed outside of like maybe a different cut of Journey, you know, at any point in the last, you know, however many years. So it's really nice to see that these like you know, well-funded tool sets are becoming completely accessible for like hobby level developers. And I think that that's, you know, just contributed so much to like the indie game scene.
Yeah. I've had in my head, I've had this reoccurring vision, I guess, of something in RPG Maker where the concept is you are inside of a fleshy, you're inside of a big monster, and, you know, stop me if you've heard this before.
No. RPG Maker does like fleshy, nasty hallways better than just about anything else that I've like used.
And
RPG Maker's awesome.
And I think it was like this weird fever dream because it was like, you know, one of your allies that you find is like this shoe that's like upside down with legs, and it takes the shoe off towards the end as this big dramatic reveal, and I'm like, why is this still? This has been in my head since I was 12.
You should honestly make it. That's what I'm saying is that the newer versions of like RPG Maker and Unreal 5 just came out. You know, these engines are really easy to pick up, especially if you have an artistic background. You know, you just throw together a tile set in RPG Maker and you've got a game. All you have to learn how to do is like event scripting and things like that. Yeah, and there's tutorials for all that. So
yeah, and I think the newest, I think one of the newer versions, MV, like it has like Android and everything like compatibility or like mobile compatibilities now, so you can just push it out to, you know, whatever platform you want. But
yeah, there's been a big push for like mobile, considering it makes, I think, more money than all other forms of games combined, including like tabletops, which is insane.
Significantly more accessible.
You got games on your phone?
Hey,
as kids
exactly.
Say. But I want to circle back real quick to this day and age. Yeah, game design, anybody can get into it. You buy RPG Maker, you buy Game Maker Studio 2, which I use and I play around with from time to time, just kind of figuring it out.
It's my first engine, yeah.
I mean, but my first one was RPG Maker on the PS2. It was like the 3D one that they made, and I had no idea what it was I was looking at. But you think like we've come that far, like circling back to the John Carmack thing, like the original thing where it's like people can make, you know, the WADs for Doom and just make their whole own like maps and everything for it. And then you got, you know, Source that dropped and people were doing stuff, making stuff based on like the Half-Life engine. And then you had the period of Amnesia where people were just making their own Amnesia stories and maps and everything. And you just see like this steady growth of just the accessibility of, you know, game development and just user created content, which I think is very important for the longevity of a lot of games. I don't think Amnesia would have had the lifespan it did if people could not make their own, you know, stories in that engine. And
no, absolutely.
Good job to Frictional for doing that in engine for their game too. So
oh yeah, and I think that that's one of the big differences is, you know, I can't in any good conscience say that this hasn't been going on for years and years. Like, you know, so many of the
Warcraft 3, StarCraft.
Yeah, I mean, we got League of Legends out of a custom Dota, or we got Dota out of a custom Warcraft thing, and then that gave us League of Legends. Like, there's this step by step to one of the biggest games in the world being a user created thing. So
especially with like, and it's interesting to see how it's diverged, because I think that that's been the big difference in the last couple of years, and it's why you're seeing so many really amazing like indie projects pop up, is because this has gone from a niche thing that you can do in the engine for other games to let's make a tool set specifically for making games from the ground up. And that's actually what I largely got started with. Like I jumped straight into Unreal back in college just because I felt like making a meme horror game, and I just really enjoyed it. But I was just like, yeah, I'll just pick up Unreal. I watched a couple tutorials, put out my first game in 6 months, and like haven't looked back since. You know, but like there's something about the fact that it's, you know, you have this dedicated, you know, let's make a game engine rather than let's make a really competent mod set that you need like programming experience for.
Yeah.
Like I've been making games for 5-6 years now. I have never written a single line of code. I managed to get a job in like professionally in games without knowing a single line of C++. I exclusively use Unreal's in-engine visual scripting language. It's called Blueprint, and it's, especially if you don't have coding experience, is like Visual Script is one of the best things you can learn, because there are professional applications, and it might not run as efficiently as C++, but if you're just like making a game on your own on the PC, that doesn't really matter. You know, as long as your load times aren't terrible and it's not chugging, who cares? You know, some of the best games I've ever played are held together with like duct tape and a prayer.
Yeah.
I mean, not ours. Our games are well formatted.
Our games are great.
Super
Buy our
well put together.
It's like my experience with RPG Maker, because I did stuff in RPG Maker, and their visual like thing where it's like, here's your conditions, here you select what triggers the event. Like, it's more of like a step by like a checklist of like, okay, do I want it to continue? Am I done? But you can like select them. It's not you having to sit there and type out stuff. And then me going to Game Maker Studio 2, where it's like, oh, I actually have to write the code for like the movement of this block on a background. So I'm
that turns so many people off. Honestly,
let's go to Google.
That's been the thing that has turned so many people that I know off of game design. It's just like, oh man, I have to learn C#. Oh man, I have to learn, you know, Python. I have to learn whatever the hell Godot uses. You know, it's just like, it's this 1-inch barrier, you know, of like kind of learning this new language. But once you get past that, it's like, oh, you know, this thing I used to make a dialogue system, I can also use to like use that, oh, as something in front of me to use to like make a wall climb, for example. That was something I did in my first project, you know. But it's like you almost have to learn like a spatial language. It's almost like converting English into calculus, for example. It's just not a one-to-one conversion, but once you get your brain working like that, it's you know, you're done. You got a whole career ahead of you. It's awesome.
It's also the thing of like learning the rules so you can then break the rules.
Yeah, it's like, this shouldn't work, but it does, and therefore it works.
I think my favorite story with that is that the Dead Space guys for Dead Space 1, they had this engine and they knew its limitations and everything. Yeah. And they said that the part of the game, the part of development that almost like just ruined the game and just like a dead stop was when Isaac gets grabbed by the tentacle thing. and like dragged like through the ship towards the hole because they had to do a whole new thing of coding for that.
Yep.
And it's like it almost killed development of Dead Space because they wanted it, but it took them so long to figure out how to do it because they only thought about the limitations of the system rather than, you know, improving upon it.
Oh yeah, like any major like gameplay mechanic is going to take at least like a week or so to get right. Like, and that's just for like, oh, you know, like I'm working on a like a sword that like, you know, does whatever. It's like if it doesn't do what a sword is supposed to do, like, and the way the rest of the swords work, that's at least a week of just how do we write a system to get this to work? Do I have to do this math manually? Do we have precedent for this? Can I cannibalize any other script to make this happen? But especially if it's like a massive departure from the normal like format of the rest of the game, that definitely took at least a month. It's really wild to me, like how much tiny things like that, or what should theoretically be tiny things like that, are just like absolutely the worst to put together.
Yeah. And we're seeing that now with like the Dead Space remake. Like all of their footage is like, look, we're trying to get this as close to the original as we can in terms of coding. Like they spent months figuring out how to just make the gun feel right, like the plasma cutter. And it's just like, I don't know if that's like detrimental to their development or if it's like they're like, hey, we're taking this very seriously for you guys. So
well, I think it's just a question of priority at that point. It's like you're making a remake of a game that came out what, maybe 10, 15 years ago. Oh god.
I think 10 years.
That's
10 or 15.
I feel old.
I just played it recently. I should know this.
It's a good game. But like,
it still holds up. Like I played through the first one in like the last few months. It still holds up. It is still an incredible game, and 2 is still even better.
Yeah, like, Dead Space 2 is Dead Space 2 in particular is an unbelievable game.
And then I quit like, 3 episodes into 3. So
yeah, no, I did not like 3 personally. But the thing about it is, it's like we're making a remake of a game. The real question is why. Like what has brought you to the point where you're like, yes, I need to do a remake of this game that came out 10, 15 years ago. What do I want to change about it?
The Last of Us moment.
Yeah, I personally don't. I'm getting a little sick of remasters, especially like if it's like if it's like PS3 or later. I don't know. Like Demon's Souls, even like I see why Bluepoint did that, and I honestly like I think that Bluepoint is one of the studios that's doing these remasters in a way that's like cool and fun and interesting. You know, because like Demon's Souls remake, it's like, okay, we're keeping most of the code, but let's update all the visuals. Let's make it really, you know, pretty in a way that they weren't technically able to back on the PS3. You know, let's write better netcode. Let's do this, that, and the other to give people a smoother experience and kind of let them re-experience this thing that's now at least kind of lo-fi. But I feel like Dead Space, even visually, like really holds up. Like that gore system is gorgeous. Yeah. No pun intended. So the thing about it is, it's like, what are you trying to accomplish with a remaster that, you know, wasn't present in the original, either because it wasn't technically possible or there were limitations? Are you restoring cut content? That's the reason. That's the kinds of things I feel like you should make a remake rather than a remaster.
I think EA just realized that their single player games sell, so now they're going back. It's like, where's all of our single game properties?
Oh god, I'm so glad we're going back to single player focus. So excited about it.
Don't forget Blizzard though, with Warcraft 3. It's like, I like money.
On the topic of on the topic of remasters, if I can walk into GameStop and buy the game today, it doesn't need a remaster. Like if it's,
I would generally agree with that. Yeah,
if it's a game that's PS1 or PS2 that, you know, it's harder to find, or the, you know, secondhand prices are just out the window because of just how few copies are still around. I mean, by all means, remake it, bring it up to date, you know, introduce it to a new generation. But it's like,
but I feel like do it in a way that like is meaningful and like changes something about the experience,
like the Crash and Spyro's remasters.
Yeah. I actually one of the guys, shout out to Aaron, who worked at Toys for Bob back when they were working on Spyro Reignited, was like one of the people that was super duper helpful to me like when I was first starting to get into the industry. He got me connected with like a lot of really cool people, and that's the nice thing about folks in games is like anybody who's already in the industry knows what a pain in the ass it is to get into the industry. So they'll like go to insane lengths to just like help you, especially if you're talented and driven. Like, you know, showing that kind of initiative that you're like reaching out to people and you know, doing everything you can to set yourself up for success in the industry. People will see that and just like, you know, show you what they can and just have you run with it. Yeah, games industry people are like the best kind of people.
Yeah.
Or at least the ones I've met.
I mean, I know one person in the game development industry, and they're pretty awesome. So,
I wanted to switch gears to actually talking about gaming in the industry, as you've alluded to here. So, for those of you who do not know, I am actually actively seeking employment where I can, and one of those things I know is, you know, on the bottom level of, not the bottom level because that implies bad, but like on that bottom level of like entry level of games industry is like QA testing.
Yeah. It's really interesting to me for folks who are like not technically experienced, but have a lot of people have this misconception that QA is like one of those like unskilled jobs, like whatever, you know, it's just people who play video games all day. And it's like, I honestly look at a lot of the work that the QA guys are doing at our studio, and I'm like, I never would have found that. You have to have this really like pursuant mindset where you're willing to figure out not only, hey, this is broken, but like track down all the use cases and figure out maybe like what situations and what variables are in place that are causing these kinds of problems. So
game sense.
Like, exactly. Yeah. It's like there's a big difference between, oh, I think I can be QA because I can run into walls and like break stuff easily, and you know, I have IT experience and like customer service experience, so I understand the process of like, you know, reporting bugs and like finding the source of issues and whether or not they're consistent, how to reproduce them, things like that. So the thing that I generally recommend for a lot of people going into the industry, because those tester jobs are really sought after by people who don't necessarily have that information, is actually production. Production is a really, really cool job. It's actually what I specialized in college. I'm almost entirely self-taught on the design side, but most of my experience with directing and running projects actually is from my college experience. One of my professors was a producer on Borderlands. But if you really enjoy, you know, the process of creative work and making sure that, you know, if you like herding cats essentially, and you like organization,
make sure all those timetables are on time.
Exactly. Yeah, production is such an undervalued and underrepresented job that it's definitely something to look into. I actually, like, if I didn't get this design job, was starting to apply for assistant producer jobs because I just understand the process of how games are made well enough at this point, because I was solo for so long, that I think I'd actually probably be able to do a half decent job, like, you know, making sure all the devs like have what they need and stuff like that. But I ended up being a designer, so.
What steps would you say to people who are trying to get into the industry, as like, yes, so you have the job you are looking at, what steps would you say would be the optimal steps for them to take?
So the two really big pieces of advice that I got while I was applying are to have an insane portfolio and to network as much as possible. You know, going off the portfolio thing, I can actually send you a link if you want, but it's one of the things that really stuck out about my application when I was talking with my now boss after I was hired is the fact that I had not only a grouping of like small kind of example concept pieces that I threw together because I just wanted to build a mechanic because it was fun. What they're really looking for is that you've committed to a feature-rich project and stuck with it. Because the thing about it is, it's like, you know, anybody can throw, you know, their heart into game design for like 5 months and then quit. You know, you'll get yourself burnt out if you don't know how to manage your time. So having one fully fleshed out, well thought out, well designed project is going to be worth more than like, you know, 10 million of these like little kind of example projects. They're good to have, But the more like large, especially shipped projects you have, the better your chances are. For example,
so just do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Just do it.
Exactly. But if you're going to do it, commit to it. Is like the thing that everybody misses. Exactly.
You can't half-ass it if you're looking for this to be like a career path for you.
Correct.
Like for example, I only had one shipped project when I got my job. Most studios will put like a 3 shipped projects required minimum for junior level. Like, how are you supposed to get that? So the fact that I had a contract under my belt, I actually directed a game for DreadX Collection 2. I don't know what it is with me and twos. But I directed an entire horror game in 2 weeks. I was on a team with 3 other really awesome devs and a couple of contractors helping out with like animation work and things like that. But because I had this project that I had pretty much gotten the opportunity to direct because I was friends with people from Haunted PS1, and I had made these connections with these other people and worked on like a small game jam game with the guys that I ended up working on the Diving Bell with. I got this opportunity to get, have 2 weeks and some funding to like make whatever we wanted. So, having that opportunity, like I got more burnt out in those 2 weeks because I didn't know how to manage my own expectations than I have the entirety of the, year and a quarter or so I've been working at Gunfire. Just experiencing, I don't want to say having a bad experience because working on DreadX was a really great experience, but having the experience of, I want to make a thing, but I don't have the time or resources to make it like what I want it to be. So here's how I'm adjusting my design, like in respect to that. That's the knowledge that they're really looking for you to have. It's not, I know how to make games. It's, I know how to not destroy myself while making games. And then the other really big thing I can think of right off the top of my head is like everybody talks about like jokes about LinkedIn. It's so helpful. Back when I was first applying for design jobs in I think August of like 2020 2020. I didn't have the experience. Like I had finished that shipped project, but I still didn't have the kind of mindset that I needed to like get where I was going. So I got on LinkedIn and I started messaging people at these companies that I wanted to work at, saying, "Hi, my name is Aidan. I've been making games for so long. I am eventually interested in getting to have your job title somewhere, but I really like the games that, for example, Gunfire makes, and I was wondering what skills I could build and what I could do to make my application more appealing to y'all as a studio, and like what you're looking for in a technical designer, for example." So when I was first applying, I had a lot of experience with gameplay scripting, but I didn't have a lot of experience with like animation and state machines and things like that because I'd never really worked on like a fighting game. So, building up those skills in the meantime while I was working on these other projects was something that was really helpful for me. Find the person with the job that you want and just send them a message. It doesn't even have to be like a principal level designer or anything. Some of the people who were, I'm going to shout out another guy, Wilson at Airship Syndicate, is just an absolute monster and sat with me for around 2 weeks and helped me rewrite my entire resume and CV just to apply to Gunfire. And like I was saying, games industry people will go out of their way to like help you as long as you're driven and know what you're talking about. But like, I was applying for Airship Syndicate, but it didn't even matter that I didn't work there. He just, saw that I cared about what I was talking about and wanted to help. And having that resume kind of workshopped and having my portfolio workshopped and stuff like that when I did really push to work at Gunfire in particular was like a huge step forward from the last time I had applied, because I got my job around a year after I first applied, and it was because I did all of that revision and made those connections and messaged my now boss on LinkedIn. So making connections along the way will get you where you want to go a lot faster.
Yeah,
I've noticed people who are in the industry are also like a lot of people who are like at the senior level will make like a side hustle out of like doing boot camps with people.
It's something I've seen in the past. I honestly think that those are great and all, but forming that personal one-on-one connection with these people, especially people at the companies where you're interested in working who have worked on games that you're interested in. I think that is honestly, I would argue, more valuable as a professional, unless you don't actually have the design skills that you would have had to have built to get to that point, in which case boot camps are fantastic.
Yes.
It's just it's like a what area do you need work in kind of thing. But like if you're looking for an overall experience, yeah, those boot camps are fantastic.
Sorry, Sharky, go ahead.
I've been I've been looking to see if any colleges around here have like offered a game design course, and they do here at ODU, which is our like main university here, but it's like all day things, and I'm like, man, if I didn't have to have a full-time job, I could just like go to school to learn some of this stuff again.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say, this might be an unpopular opinion on my part, but you don't need a degree. As long as it will help you, it will maybe get the door, maybe get your foot in the door, but you will not get there on it's like the quality of your work is so much more important to these like people who have been in the industry for, 10, 20, 30 years. They see how much, these like indie devs are able to do with like maybe 5 people, if that, so the quality of your work and the passion that you have for the projects that you're working on is infinitely more important than a piece of paper. Not like having the knowledge to say, I like this thing about a game and here's why I like it and how I would do it differently in order to like make it better suit my own tastes is all the questions you need to be able to answer on a like work level. I mean, outside of like technical knowledge and things like that,
Sure.
But like, I will say that like I'm almost completely self-taught. My degree is actually in IT. So you do not need a degree in game design to get into game design. It's all about passion.
I work as an electrician. I have a college degree in like website design. So
it's a lot of those skills are transferable, dude. I'm telling you, like if you know C# already, pick up Unity.
No, mine was more of the graphic side of it, like the actual display, not the programming itself. So I got like basic.
Something there.
Basic. That's still super duper helpful though. There are entire jobs that are a lot of web designers will actually move over to what's called UI design and UI scripting, which is basically just like whatever's on the screen for those who are uninformed. Yeah. So like, menus and
going back to
displays and
going back to Dead Space, the cleanness of that HUD just being on the back of Isaac.
Brilliant.
Nothing on the screen, just ammo on the gun, health on the spine, stasis on the shoulder, and it's like, this is like, how did they just like look at this and be like, you know what, this?
That was a galaxy brain move on their part. The thing about it is, it's like that might not have worked in a game like Dark Souls. You need like a more complicated UI. Specifically, the focus with Dead Space was on having no UI whatsoever, so that all you're looking at is the scares.
That's what I liked about Resident Evil, like the early ones, is it was the same thing. It's like there's no UI. It's just the only indication you have someone's hurt is that they start going like this and like limping.
Yeah, I mean that's another thing. It's like the movement starts to be affected by how damaged you are, and you don't see how damaged you are until you open up your menu and see you have the red. You have the red bar and a red herb and no other herbs, and you're like, I can't heal right now.
But the thing about it is that's also an intentional choice, and it's like, visually this makes sense to me as I'm in trouble. But from a and this is the step that you have to take in order to like. This is the kind of steps you have to start taking to like consider yourself like a pro level designer, and this is the kind of thing like thought process they're looking for. Why is there no number? Why is there only a warning? Why can't you see that you have 3 hits left until you die? It's to make you anxious.
Yeah.
They were intentionally vague with telling you how much health you have left, specifically to make you more scared.
Survival horror.
It all added up.
Exactly.
It was actual horror.
But the thing about it is, it's like, oh, well, I know I need to pause after this next guy hits me because I only have 2 hit points left, so I can only take 1.
Yeah.
That works great in Dark Souls, but with Resident Evil, it's like, oh, I don't know how many hits I have left until I go down.
Because you don't know how much damage things do, and it's like there are times where it's like the liquor can just like, it hits you once and then it hits you again, and you get the death animation of your head coming off. It's like, these things just kill me. And it's like I got that feeling again. got onto itch.io again, and
love Itch.
Endless Blue. It's another like lo-fi.
Yeah.
And they did the same thing. I'm like playing through, and it's like I don't see a health bar, I don't see a HUD. You open it up, it's that menu that pops up with the little health thing, and I'm like, this takes me back. Like this takes me right back to that cozy home.
And that's the nice thing about, you know, I'm very much a proponent of like games are art, and games like first and foremost should be considered, you know, from an artistic lens. So the fact that we're getting to a point in the history of like game design, and it's like advancing so rapidly that we're able to almost refer to like periods of art history just in the last, like every time we go up a console generation, is so fascinating to me, because it means that we have this like we as designers have this really wide bank of knowledge, and not only knowledge, but like nostalgia and memories of, oh, you know, everyone played Elden Ring when it came out. So I don't know, like, you know, you see red and it's like, oh, that's health. You know, this is just kind of an overarching game thing, but it's like, you know, you see red and that's health. You see blue, that's probably magic. You see green, that's probably stamina. Like, is health as a concept in real life red? No. It's just, you know, you know inherently that that's how much life you have left because other games have done it that way. You know, so in establishing these kinds of conventions, you're not only able to communicate things to the player wordlessly without tutorials, but you're also able to subvert those expectations, and that's what Haunted PS1 is about. It's, hey, why does the health bar go down constantly? That makes me anxious. I've run out, and now it's starting to go into the negatives. Why is that happening? You know, and it's like, oh, well, I'm really nervous now. Holy shit, a monster! You know,
and taking it back to that, you know, video games as an art form, and kind of looping it back to the remakes and remasters. I mean, that's the thing. A lot of gaming history just isn't available to a lot of people right now. And I mean, you got the stores with the digital copies. And I mean, but even I don't think those like transferred between generations. So it's like
exactly
stuff I buy on my PS3 is like on my PS3. I can't get it to PS4, you know. But then there are games on, you know, PS2. I'm going to continue to sing the praises about Darkwatch because it's one of my favorite first-person shooters.
That's the cowboy one with the like
the cowboy vampires,
gun, right? Yeah. The chick kicks ass, man.
It's like, this is great. I can't play it any way besides going out and getting a PS2 disc or doing the emulator thing. But even like then, the ROM has bugs that make it unplayable if you hit a certain thing at a time. So it's like, how am I supposed to play this game unless I dish out the money for a PS2 and the game itself?
I actually, this made me think of something really funny. First of all, the very cynical part of my brain is telling me that all of these remakes and remasters are a sign that they're intentionally not preserving this media so that they can just present it in whatever format they being, you know, like
because capitalism.
Exactly. You know, there's a very cynical part of my brain that says this is happening on purpose, and that's why these companies crack down so hard on emulation and, like, you know, media preservation as a whole. And then I think about the time I got Klonoa 2 running on my computer, and I don't know what the hell was wrong with the copy that I had, but the entire ocean was made out of static and none of the music worked, so it felt like a horror game. And I played it for maybe 15 minutes with like the most visually upsetting bugs I have ever experienced in a game that I have nostalgia for, and then my hard drive broke. Like that's not a reliable way to be able to experience media from your childhood. That's like not how this should work. I feel like, you know, game preservation is something that really hasn't been considered, especially for like these kind of more obscure titles that, like, I don't know a single other person who's ever played Star Wars Demolition for the PS1.
Is that the racing one?
Yeah. It's the one where you like drive around and you get like, I'm so glad someone else.
It's Star Wars, if I remember, it's Star Wars Twisted Metal.
Star Wars Twisted Metal, baby.
And you just have you have all these people in their vehicles, and then you just have Boba Fett with his jetpack.
Just driving around in a jetpack.
It's like just a guy flying around.
I remember playing that game just for hours and hours. And then, like, I was at least, like, 50 hours into playing this game, and then I unlocked a character, and I was like, my little 6-year-old brain, like, exploded. God, you know, just the fact that, like, you know, especially pre-internet, the fact that you would just be able to like come across something in a video game is something that I don't know if we're ever going to be able to
I was about
like
to say
reproduce as an industry without like really, really good random generation.
Can we just like remember those days where it's like, man, playing this game got you stuff.
Yeah.
It wasn't paying for it. It wasn't season passes. It was you beat this level and under this time with this other factor, you've unlocked this character.
Yeah, you unlocked an entirely different character with its own moveset and like all this other crazy shit.
You beat one out for a real one. Man.
You beat Resident Evil in 3 hours with 3 saves. Here's hard mode. Like those kind of things.
Here's
like,
Hunk, here's Tofu.
Yeah, here's Hunk, here's Tofu, here's the infinite rocket launcher. It's like just those little rewards, you know.
I miss that. Yeah. And that's the nice thing about it is you know, I feel like AAA games are kind of moving towards that like what was the name of that game? Godfall, the one that was made by Platinum that like was an online only single player game that like 15 people played. Yeah, I was so sad because that game looked awesome.
Kind of a bomb.
But it's like, you know, you have these like massive studios that think they know what people want, but the problem is they're just pushing out the same game every year. So it's like everybody's getting sick of it. So you see these, you know, like Gunfire level, like AA studios that have, you know, the funding to be able to make a lot of stuff that indies wouldn't be able to make, and are able to pull these influences from these, you know, micro indie games, you know, itch.io, Haunted PS1 kind of stuff without nearly as much of the corporate oversight. And that's part of why I really, really like working at Gunfire is the president of our company doesn't have an office. He's at the cluster of desks next to me, and we're all just in one big room, except the audio guys, but that's because they need a door that they can like close to make sounds.
Yeah, the soundproof room.
They'll shut up.
But the thing about it is, it's like, you know, I remember one of the things that really sold me on the job here was the fact that, you know, in my interview, they were like, yeah, you know, we're really opposed to the whole like microtransaction formula, you know, we want to make sure, you know, get this game into as many people's hands as possible and have them get as much out of it as possible without, you know, a bunch of hidden fees. And like, oh, I would play this thing that you worked really hard on, but I don't feel like paying an extra $5 for the like skins pack, or like the, oh, you know, you get 5 extra side missions or whatever. It's like just let me buy a game once.
Yeah. Let me buy a full game.
Exactly. So I think that mentality is something that's really different about like everything from micro indie all the way up to like, you know, AA. It's something that I really feel like is missing from a lot of these like, you know, massive scale, you know, again, different priorities. You know, these AAA games look unbelievable. It's like the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. It's just, I personally would rather have a game that looks worse and is more fun to play that was made by people who worked less hard for more money. I mean, you know what I mean?
I like the game that it was at for me recently, like Tunic.
Oh,
looks real good.
It looks gorgeous. Fantastic. The music is great. The gameplay is a very good Dark Souls / Zelda mix. And it's like, it was done by one guy. Everything was done by one guy. But I think except for the soundtrack, but I know he did pretty much everything himself. And I'm like, just
it's fascinating. Yeah.
The presentation, like you find the pages of the instruction manual that like guides you through the game and gives you like little hints on like the maps and everything on it. I'm like,
it's so charming.
I'm like, this is like my childhood, like me pulling the Super Nintendo box open and pulling out the little instruction manual to see how to play the game. It's just,
no, man. I completely agree. Well, fun fact, my buddy Harris, actually, shout out Harris, runs Finjico. He's the community manager, so he actually, nice. I believe, is the community manager for Tunic. Yeah, really cool dude. But you know, it's so interesting to see these companies like Finji and New Blood. For those of you who enjoy,
I follow Dave O'Shea. I follow Dave O'Shea. The Twitter game is so good.
He's a maniac.
What did he just buy? He bought a URL.
His Dave Oshry's URL collection grows every single day.
Something was coming out, so he bought like it was the game title DLC.com, and it linked you to his game page on Steam.
Love it.
And it's like that's all he does, and I'm like, Dave, what are you doing?
Like, I love that shitposting is a viable like marketing strategy these days.
It's his whole market strategy.
He's brilliant. I like Dave Oshry was one of the people that like I remember. I've actually played Dusk with Dave Szymanski in a voice chat.
Good.
Dusk literally like, I don't want to say it was like life changing for me because it was a really, really good game, but like the thing for me that like sold me on that game was the fact that you can just like, if you're in the air, you can continuously look down and do a flip.
Yeah.
Like that's something you would never ever see in like a large production game, but because it was made by one guy who just really knew what he wanted to make, you know, you see stuff like that pop out and it's like, you know, oh, you know, I loved Half-Life, but like Dusk was like a whole different experience for me because of this one thing. But you know, it's really awesome to see these companies that are like, you know, we are going to put a shitload of faith in like 3 guys who have a really specific vision for a super cool thing.
I mean, look at Gloomwood. I mean, the early access for that just dropped, and it's like there was a whole point of, you know, can I drop like items, like stuff from Twitter? It's like, hey, what about this for the items like carrying? And it's like, yeah, that sounds good. And it's like, hey, what if I do this on like this lamp? And he's like, yeah, I'll see if I can put that in. And it's just like a bunch of little things that don't even matter in the grand scheme of it, but it's just like the immersion of the game where it's like, oh, look, I can hit this light and like it darkens the room. And this is like a boomer. This is like just a lo-fi, you know, first person like stealth game. And it's like, well, I didn't think about that.
That's the really thing about like really interesting thing about like immersive sims like Gloomwood in, you know, the age of Twitter in particular is the fact that it's like, oh, you know, the whole basis of an immersive sim is just we built everything in terms of gameplay off of systemic interactions. Like Dishonored is another really good example. You know, it's like very few things in the gameplay are actually planned. It's just we built a bunch of systems with like really, really intense permutations and just watched how they interact. So the thing about it is if you're able to crowdsource, oh, hey, I tried to do this and it didn't work, you know, that like broke my immersion a little bit. It's like, okay, well, now that works, you know. So I think we're going to see a lot of like the System Shock remake. I'm really, really excited for, specifically because it's, I think, one of the first major like studio release immersive simulators that's, you know, kind of in that like post, I guess, like Undertale was kind of the moment where I was like, oh, like indie game Twitter exists.
I think Undertale kind of changed the landscape of indie game because it wasn't just the fact that it's a great game. It's also like the little things, like the fact that your data is kept in a file. So if you restart, it's like, oh, you've done this before, and it's like it's like
that level of persistence. It's like meta thinking
this
that you never really saw before.
Yeah, it's like it's not just the game. This is more than just the game at this point. And then it's like here's all these little hidden triggers that can do later stuff in the game. It's I'm like, I think Undertale did just like hit the landscape with just like this right hook, and everybody took notice of it.
Oh yeah, no, it really like it's so interesting to me how many like design choices nowadays have just been like so heavily affected by how open-ended that game was and the fact that it had already thought of everything before you did. And it's like, oh, what happens if I remember one of the things that like outside of just playing Little Big Planet for endless hours and just making whatever, one of the moments where I really was like, oh man, game design's really cool, I think I want to do this, was when I was playing Undertale and I was like right before the first boss in my neutral run. And I think I had beaten the main boss once. And then I just walked all the way back to the first room in the game saying like, oh man, you know, I wonder if there's like something different in the first room because it's like an important story beat that kind of gets echoed at the end. And there was. Like, I was rewarded for like making the entire adventure that I had just done backwards. And there was something there. Like, that's crazy. You know, it's a feeling I haven't really felt since until I like Elden Ring was like one of the first things that I've felt that way about, because it just rewarded me for like, oh yeah, you know, there's like a ledge over here, whatever, and you go over on the ledge and there's like a unique sword over there. Like, that's insane. That's not like a thing that would have been possible without, you know, the way, you know, the efficiency and like way that games are made nowadays. So it's really interesting to see, you know, how these breakthroughs in design philosophy and things like that are able to just, you know, so heavily affect everything from there on. And it's like, you won't see those kinds of risks taken outside of that micro indie space because, oh, what if we lose funding because we made a decision that people didn't like? And it's like, screw funding. I'm just some guy in his bedroom. Like, I'm just going to make a weird thing. And then all of a sudden you see that same kind of design idea pop up in like, you know, something that's like a AAA game. And it's like, oh, hey, I did that. That's crazy.
It's like the two outcomes for, I think, like AAA thing is like, You make it, it succeeds. They like make you one of their flagship studios, and it's like, hey, make a sequel for us or something like that, or make another game.
And
or you
they
fail,
drive into the dirt.
Or you fail, and then they give you a game to design that you have no business designing, like they did with Visceral, where it's like, hey, Dead Space is good. Can you make Battlefield for us? And then, you know, they cannibalize.
I've never understood the point of recycling an IP in a format that is just so drastically different from the reason that people loved it in the first place. Dead Space is like the one that I always think of, but like even Doom Eternal to some extent, like really iterated on a lot of the stuff that Doom 2016 did well. And the fact that like the whole story was cut from Doom 2016, making it a better game, I almost worry was a sentiment that was kind of lost when it came around to, you know, Doom Eternal, when they were like, okay, you know, batshit insane, crazy fast first-person shooter. People like this, right? Let's make it even more insane and make it so that you have to get way better at the tech in order to succeed. But also let's put a bunch of story beats in here for like that reference something that happened between the two games that nobody knows about. So now you have to go read a comic, and it's like, yeah, but like I feel like that in particular as an element in Doom Eternal was something that was really like lost in translation from the first game to the sequel. I think I would have actually enjoyed Doom Eternal less with less explanation. Like the idea of like, you know, some guy's trying to monologue at me and I just pop him in the face with a shotgun. Are you kidding me? That's awesome. That's Doom.
I wanted to like Doom Eternal, but I feel like the game changed too much from what I liked about Doom 2016. It made it feel more of like an arcade shooter than just that frantic arena shooter that Doom 2016 just fucking nailed on the first try.
I think that Doom 2016 was lightning in a bottle to some extent. Yeah. It's really hard to follow up a game that is that focused and that intent on doing exactly one thing. Because the thing about it is, it's like if they had made Doom 2016 2, it wouldn't have done well. Because it's like, oh, well, that's just Doom again. Like, what's new about this one? So for me personally, as somebody who has the mentality of a crackhead, like I really enjoy just like the faster a game is and the more it lets me just like move around to space, the more I'm going to enjoy it. Mirror's Edge is a classic for me. There's a game called Dead Core that I go back and play every once in a while. That's just a like first person puzzle platforming shooter. It's really hard to explain, but like just stuff that lets you move in a cool and satisfying way is like always going to be right up my alley.
Yeah.
So I really, really enjoyed Doom Eternal, but I remember like, and it's funny for me as a person who enjoys like game stories, like how much I just felt myself tuning out during these narrative segments. Mm-hmm. I would rather just be shooting stuff and have someone talk in my ear while I kill things. Like if it's formatted like Doom.
Kind of like Halo.
The thing with
a little bit closer to that, but just fast.
Yeah. The thing with Doom
Halo,
Eternal,
but fast.
The thing with Doom Eternal is that it wasn't trying to be a sequel to Doom 2016. It was trying to be a sequel to all of Doom.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's where they kind of lost it a bit, where it's like, oh, look, this is not just this timeline. This is another timeline.
Exactly.
But the same original. So it's like, so you've complicated the story for yourself.
Yeah, exactly. And you have to take time to explain this. And if people are just shooting stuff, then they're going to miss that. And like, and so it's like, okay, now we have to put cutscenes. So it's like they either had the option to do away with the story entirely and just have you shoot stuff again, or do what they did and potentially alienate people by like making them sit through cutscenes.
The Legend of Zelda moment.
There's a big Legend of Zelda moment, but
yeah,
they also, it's like just like a minor spoiler for the Ancient Gods one, they straight up ripped the Avengers scene for a story beat in that fucking moment. And I mean, I was hyped for it. I love scenes like that, but I was just this is very obvious where they got this idea from.
Yeah, I feel like they didn't go campy enough. Honestly,
I think
like everybody complained about how hypercolor it was, but like I wanted it to be goofier. I like if you're gonna make everything pink and green and yellow and just like flying all over the screen, just
like big head mode.
Exactly, just give me big and stupid. Like I like big and stupid. It's like my favorite kind
the
of
Halo
like
confetti. The Halo confetti, just like you shoot a gun to the head and it's like party popper. You know,
like give me more shit like that. Like, you know, I feel like if you're gonna commit to something being goofy and ridiculous, you should like go the DMC3 route where he's like, you know, Dante's got 3 knives through his chest and he catches a pizza box. And then just eats a slice of pizza. Like, it's so dumb.
Oh, God,
but it's like
so many cuts in that angle.
But every single second of DMC3, I never skipped a single cutscene in DMC3 because it was just like, oh my god.
All right, this is the part. This is the part where Sharky talks about Devil May Cry for a sec.
Devil May Cry.
So on my streams, I previously was playing Devil May Cry because I am not going to be able to beat that final boss. The gameplay change from the game I adjusted to what the final boss is just so
where
jarring.
it like takes away your like second ability so you can command Virgil or whatever.
Okay, no, so I'm playing Devil May Cry 1.
I'm
already frustrated with it because it's this hack and slash style game while trying to be survival horror. So it's fixed camera angles and it like throws you go like 1 centimeter past a line and then the camera changes and it throws you off. Yeah, then you get to the final boss and it's like a space harrier. Like, it's just flying through the air shooting stuff, and then phase 2 is like a platform battle. And I'm like, I don't think I can beat this game. Like,
I think the thing that DMC1 in particular really like suffered from was that it started out as Resident Evil 4.
It started out as Resident Evil 4, which
I
can't see Leon doing that through a castle, but then
I would love to see Leon
but
do
then
that.
I think about Resident Evil 4. And it's Leon doing that through a castle. So
I was gonna say that definitely happened in Resident Evil 4.
Yeah, I just like I remember that was one of the big things for me is because I like didn't finish Devil May Cry 2. You know, I remember thinking it was really cool that a lot of the like combat systems had been improved and you could run on walls, which was stupid and fun. But I just couldn't get into it. I didn't like edgy like you know, like Dante and Devil May Cry 2 is just like boring.
I was told to prepare for Devil May Cry 2 kind of being the worst of the original 3. To at least
if you get burnt out on it, just go to 3. Yeah. I don't know if you've played 3 yet.
Oh no, the plan was to play through all of them, but after DMC 1, I'm like,
no. Do yourself a favor. Do yourself a favor, man. Stick it out till DMC 3. I literally got so into that game that I remapped my entire controller just to make it easier for myself to play. It is that tight. It's a really, really good game. But the thing about it is it was able to become that good of a game because it wasn't being held back by being not Resident Evil anymore.
Yeah.
It was just
identity.
This didn't work last time. Let's just go in all in on the style.
It found its identity. It wasn't trying to be Resident Evil's identity. It's like, let's make the start of the crazy game genre, which eventually gave us, Bayonetta, the newer Devil May Cries, which are which I hear are fantastic.
Yeah,
stuff like Mad World. Like it's like
Mad World's awesome.
I think without Devil May Cry, I don't think Platinum Games exists. So.
Oh, yeah. And that gave us Revengeance, which is one of my favorite games of all time.
Ridiculous Metal Gear Solid game ever.
It is, and it's meme worthy. I think God Hand came out after Devil May Cry also.
So I love God Hand.
It's a ridiculous game.
Is fascinating.
It's they said they made the trailer. So the story behind that is that they made the trailer for the game as a comedy. And fans loved it. So they went back and reprogrammed the game to be comedic rather than serious like they planned.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, like just like the like mash X to spank.
Yeah.
It's just like that's not something you would see in a game nowadays, and that just makes me so sad. I'm really bummed that honestly, I think that one of the things that we're gonna start seeing, because we got, we're getting PS1 nostalgia right now, I think if I had to bet money on it, the next thing that we're going to see is a resurgence of hyper tight 3D platformers,
give me Ape Escape.
Yes, I love Ape Escape. I fucking love Ape Escape. If you like Ape Escape, there's a project called Ocean Commotion that I did some work on. That's like underwater Ape Escape. I did a gameplay scripting for that game. It's so much fun. Shout out to Ian, who was one of the first people who ever commissioned me to do game design work.
I mean,
love Ian.
Yeah, it's just Ape Escape, man. Talk about a game that deserves so much more.
I would love to. Ape Escape is something that I would love to see a remake of, honestly. But yeah, I think that we're going to see a lot of, kind of character-driven 3D platformers coming out of the indie scene soon. But I also think we're going to see a lot of DMC3 style character action stuff coming out, considering how good people are getting at, animation and things like that, especially in the indie scene. I'm really, really hoping we get like an era of PS2 nostalgia, because that's what I grew up on, and I'm a little bit biased, but I think that there's like a lot of cool material that's just not being utilized by the indie community because they're all focused on what they grew up with, and a lot of these people are in their like, early to mid 30s, so they're more, PS1 era. Whereas, I'm 25 and I grew up on, like my first like really distinct memories of video games was like I had a PS1 for like a week, and then my dad got me a PS2 because it had like the backwards compatibility. And so I grew up playing like Final Fantasy X, and like Sly Cooper is something I would love to see more of. That's not whatever the sequel was, because I heard it was kind of garbage. But yeah, I really hope we get that kind of fun, goofy, like just starting to get its legs technically and be able to do some really wild stuff. Kind of ethos that was like very central to the PS2 era. And then everything's gonna come crashing down when we get PS3 revival, but let's not talk about that.
Me and Deca here, we talked about it on previous episodes, being kind of old heads and everything. I mean, I grew up with Super Nintendo, so I have I have this little nostalgia for the top down or side scrolling like platformers. And I mean, Deca on one of our episodes was pulling out like Jaguar as a thing that he played or something like that, and I'm like, I'm thinking you're like the only person I know who actually has played that system.
I think Deca might be the only people who's ever owned a Jaguar.
I didn't own it. I rented it.
Oh my god, that's even better.
My parents rented it.
The
From
nostalgia.
Blockbuster?
Yeah.
Wait, actually, yo.
Yeah, actually.
Yeah, Blockbuster, man. You could get systems again. It's just that nostalgia of showing up Friday, getting a game just by the box art, not knowing what to expect. It's just.
Did y'all ever have the formative experience of being really scared of that one snowman themed horror movie in the Blockbuster with like the cover that had
Jack Frost? Yes.
Jack Frost. Yeah. I remember, like,
oh my god,
it's a movie about a snowman, and then I walk 3 feet to the right, and it's like.
Admittedly, it's the only movie that's ever made me scared of Gary Busey. So I'm pretty sure it's Gary Busey that's the voice actor for him. So
I just remember the worst line in that movie is like, "What's the difference between snowmen and snow women? Snowballs."
I've never actually seen it. I got too scared of the cover.
It is an actual line.
So
in the movie.
Jack Frost is it's not a good movie, but
it's not.
It is so like bad that it's fun to watch.
I love the horror.
It's like the epitome of that. But I think we're past our time here.
We are definitely past an hour.
So, I mean, it's a great conversation and everything.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the time here, and I'm like, oh, well, I think it's about time.
More than happy to like come back if y'all ever want to talk more.
Dude, every guest we have goes onto a list. So when it's like, hey, we need a guest, it's like, all right, who can we pull out of the hat here? It's like, hey, are you available on Wednesday? Like, so it's like that's how we kind of do stuff with our guests here. But man, this has been a great conversation today, and very informative when it comes to kind of trying to get a foot into the industry, or at least into game development itself. Just don't like push yourself, but do it. Don't kill yourself over like your first project.
Don't burn yourself out. But it's not so much how hard you push, it's how smart. You just have to be making the right moves, or you're just going to be throwing muck at a wall for years, and it's just going to burn you out.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So anything you want to add, Deca? Final comments?
I think I'm good here. I'm very happy that we finally got to like do this. I remember I had this idea for a while, and I was like, I wonder if they'd be down, maybe.
Always.
And then you didn't answer the first time. I was like, oh, well, they're not down. Okay, let's move on. And then you finally answered. I was like, fuck yeah.
And I was like,
no,
hey, I'm like, who are we getting?
God,
and it's like, it's Rabbit. And I'm like, I know him. I talked to him on Twitter once or twice. So.
I know that guy. Yeah, no, it's so funny. Discord is on. Logged into my account somewhere in the world, and I don't get notifications anymore because like all of my notifications are being sent to that one computer, and I don't know where it is. I might actually just have to make a new Discord at this point. But I absolutely love like going on podcasts, and I could just talk for hours about literally anything. So if you ever like need someone for the podcast, I'm always down. I love that.
Your name is on a long list of people we'd love to have back.
Glad to hear it.
I'm glad we didn't go 3 for 3 on VTubers though. People might have thought they're great. They were great guests, but people might have thought that we've just kind of settled into a community. So,
yeah. But, we don't settle into any community. We're in all of the communities. That's why we're without context.
There you go.
But
and I can also totally like get y'all in contact with any. I actually just got in contact with the guy who is a solo developer on the game that I play every day at lunch. It's called Peglin. It's a Peggle RPG. It's super cool.
Just
but,
the two reactions that the surprise and then the intrigue.
it's super fun. It's in early access right now, and I feel like I need to plug it because I literally play it every day. But like, I just reached out to him today and told him that something he worked on inspired something that I'm working on. These people love to hear from folks like you. Like if you ever want to get in contact with a particular indie designer, please just let me know. I'm more than happy to like be the in between for that.
Networking, like getting into the game design industry.
Hey,
we're slowly. My long-term plan is slowly coming together. We've talked to a game developer, a creative writer, and a guy who does music. We're slowly building the game squad.
Starting a studio just off of podcast guests. I love it.
The infinity gauntlet of creatives.
I'll do it myself.
I love that.
Just Rabbit, Noah, and Hug Monster. It's just like we're slowly building a team.
I love that.
That's like the most disjointed like game studio I can ever think of.
It's a chaotic mess of a studio, but I mean they're all great people, and all those episodes are available. But thank you, Rabbit, for being here today. I know we kind of pulled you out of work for a bit too. I
needed a break. It's all good.
The break from your game to talk about games.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we'll, like we do with all of our guests, we'll have a link to your Twitter. We'll have a link down to the new Haunted PS1 demo so people can check that out. I believe you need to have a itch.io and like downloader to get it. I don't think it's on any other like release platform.
Anything else you want to plug?
Oh yeah, you can download it directly from the website, but if you have the launcher, it'll automatically keep itself updated with any patches that come out with the demos. It'll just make your life a lot easier. So
yeah, if you can navigate through all the porn games that are on itch.io.
Yeah, I mean that's just a games platform.
That's just a moment. There's no, unlike Steam, which has like a criteria, which I don't think they follow a lot when you look at their
still has porn games.
And and it's just like, you know what, just whatever.
Well, that's the nice thing about it is Steam doesn't even really have that thorough of an approval process anymore. It's basically if you can pay $100, you can get on their platform. But that's the nice thing about itch is you can put your shit up for free. Yeah. Just go use it. I'm plugging itch.io right now. If you're wanting to get into games, put your stuff on itch.io. People will see it.
And when it comes hey, doggo. And when it comes to wanting to get into game development, itch.io has constant game jams going. So I mean, you want to make a small thing or any kind of themed game just to get your chops at it. I mean, itch.io just almost every day, just a game jam is like running for a period of time. Yeah.
Haunted PS1 also runs pretty regular game jams if you're looking to get specifically involved in a community of designers who are very, very welcoming to new people who are looking to get into the space. So Summer of Screams, for example, was actually Summer of Screams 2020 was the first game that I actually put on my portfolio.
Nice.
I made a game in 2 days with my buddies Cody and Connor, and with music by Germ Food, who made Night of the Consumers, if you've ever played that. And
I've heard of it.
That actually ended up becoming the basis for the code base for that is actually what the Drowning Machine is made out of. So yeah.
Is there I think you mentioned earlier, is there a Discord community for Haunted PS1?
Yeah, absolutely. It's actually the primary form of communication for us as designers. We have like a whole voice chat where you can go and hang out with people while you work, and there's advice columns and there's roles for different engines to ask people like technical questions and things like that. as a designer who either knows nothing or something, it's a really, really good place to be.
Well, so I'll get the link. I'll get the link from you after this and attach that to the description as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we've probably gone on for about another 10 minutes as this outro.
It's the Mexican goodbye. I don't know what to tell you.
It's how we usually do it. We always end up on another thing. But
like that.
Thank you, Aidan, for being here with us tonight, and shout out to Deca for knowing such awesome people. If you've liked this episode and all that, subscribe. We'll have everything shared to our Twitter and all that, so please follow us on Twitter. That link will be in the description. And Aidan, if you want to plug anything before we go, you have the floor.
I've just been talking about things I like for the last hour or so, so I just wanted to take a second to plug your podcast and just talk about how cool y'all are for doing this. I really, really enjoy going on podcasts, so just getting the opportunity to kind of just come on and shoot the shit with a couple of cool guys for a while is just a really good experience. So thank you for having me on.
Oh yeah, of course. Final plug, since we have new stuff. Deca, you have a new article that came out on your Patreon today, I believe. Or was
it? Every other Wednesday is my.
I got the notification. My $15 is going to good use each month.
Yeah.
We also have, related to your D&D or your just tabletop writing, we have launched a new YouTube channel where we will be uploading our D&D actual plays. So, weekly episodes. We have the first episode up right now. It's a D&D game based on Naruto, which is fun. And next one will be out on Saturday. And it's run by our friend Kevin. Good guy, good group of players, including myself. So check that out also. That'll be in the description also.
I don't necessarily like to talk about how the sausage is made, but I wrote that article several months ago and I forgot which one it was. So I had to tab back and be like, which one was it?
No, see, Deca has articles in the chamber from months ago and that are just now being released because he's I'm just ahead of it.
Stockpiling articles.
I'm good from right now until February.
Yeah.
It's a good investment then. Everybody go sub to Deco's Patreon.
Yeah.
But
every other Wednesday.
Yep. And every Saturday for the D&D games and every Friday for this podcast. So you guys are seeing this on a Friday and we already have our guests lined up for next week where, depending on how tonight goes, might be a very interesting conversation next week. So the world of wrestling never ceases to amaze us. So
the world of wrestling is always a dumpster fire, and it just depends on which Fed is having the dumpster fire right now.
So we're going to see how AEW deals with stuff tonight, and we'll talk about that next week. But thank you all for being here. Thank you, Aidan, for being here.
And of course, thank you for having me.
Yeah, and we'll see you guys next week. Good night, everybody.
Bye.